Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
All right,
Stand by for further
everybody.
instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Share this out, hit the like button. And what do the kids say now? Smash that like. I don't know. I've heard kids use the word smash for the wrong things, and I don't know if I want anybody smashing my like button right now. So it seems creepy. I wanted to start out a little lighthearted because as encouraging as I believe the conversation I'm about to have with Baylie is going to be, I don't necessarily relish the content because it's frustrating from a lot of different directions. So before we launch into that, thanks for being here. Thanks to the show producers who are, here through YouTube, through Subscribestar, and then I am an anonymous who supports and helps produce the show just on their own. If you haven't joined the channel as a channel member yet, please do. It's very helpful. Ever since Mrs. TC had her cardiac event back in November, things have been rough. They've been tight, and we've got some. And my guest today can understand this for their family's perspective. We've got a lot of massive medical bills, and they're adding up. So we could use the support, and there's a GoFundMe link that's available. There's super chats. All of that stuff helps because everything that comes to the channel and whatnot goes directly to keeping this end of what I'm doing. The super chats, channel memberships, super likes, all of that goes directly to me being able to keep the show going. If you give to the Give Send Go, that helps pay the bills. More importantly, in the description of this video, when this is done, we will be doing, or not doing, but adding the links to the Give Send Go for Blayke and his struggles. If you have to choose right now between giving to my Give Send Go or to Blayke's family, I would rather you give to Blayke's family. And that's because their fight is unlike anything that I'm going through right now. And to get you caught up, if you haven't been paying close attention or haven't watched all of the content, on April 9th of this year, April 9th of 2025, there was a report of a wrong way driver in Sherburne County on, as best as, and Baylie will fill us in on all of this, but as best as I can tell, it was a divided highway, and there was a wrong way driver driving down the wrong way, and this wrong way driver ended up turning in front of Blayke and his brother Braxton and their friend of theirs, and there was a minor T-bone accident that resulted in really just a small laceration to Braxton's eye. And Blayke and Braxton, being raised the way they were, got out to check on the other driver. And in the process of checking on the other driver, they were, of course, out of their vehicles. which is what all of us would do when we're involved in an accident. I mean, honestly, unless you are trapped in your vehicle, you're going to get out and check to make sure that no one's hurt. Minnesota State Patrol Trooper Ryan Moeser approaches the accident, and Baylie can give us all the details as Braxton has related them. But Braxton looks up, not expecting to see law enforcement so quickly. And because they just had the accident, this trooper was responding at such a high rate of speed that Braxton noticed him and said, the cops are here already and he's not going to be able to stop. I want you guys to think about that. How fast did that trooper have to be going in response to a wrong way driver? That he came upon that scene that fast and was unable to stop. And then to make matters worse, Sheriff Brott of Sherburne County released a statement the night of the accident stating, there was this accident, yada, yada, yada. And now I'm having all sorts of technical issues, folks. I don't know. I think I'm frozen. I'm not sure. Okay. It looks like my screen is showing I'm frozen and I don't understand what's going on. So the trooper is involved in this follow-on accident. The sheriff takes over and announces that Sherburne County Sheriff's Office is going to be doing the investigation, but then also states that, guys, I'm having some sort of weird, the system hates me. The system absolutely hates me. So I apologize for all of this. I normally have everything ready to go, and I don't know. That's why we delay before I bring the guest on, by the way, so that we're not having this experience as a system gets caught up. But anyway, the sheriff announces, while he's announcing that he's taking over the investigation, Sheriff Brott of the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office announces, and I'm not kidding you, there's an investigation, but the trooper there was no way for the trooper to avoid the accident. And it's now been over 2 months, and the family has heard absolutely nothing besides directly from the sheriff's office, which, according to Minnesota State Statute 611A, regarding the Victims' Bill of Rights, the victims of what potentially could be a crime are entitled to know what's going on with the investigation. They don't have to have all the information, but there's communication that's required as part of it. And that's where we are today. We are here almost a month and a week, or 2 months and a week, from an accident that paralyzed from the neck down a 17-year-old man, left the family with a massive amount of concerns, the least of which is financial, for forever changing their lives, all of them, Blake's, Braxton's, Bailey's, their parents, their aunts and uncles, their grandparents, all of them impacted. And it's not right. But we're going to let Baylie tell the story once my screen stops freezing up on me again. So we're just going to, so if you haven't yet, like the video, comment, if you have questions, feel free to ask them as we're moving along. And if I feel the question is good for the moment that we're in, I'll ask it, and we'll see. But and now remember, Baylie is not she's not a social media influencer like some of us. He says sarcastically, but she's very good at what she does at representing her family. So here we go. Baylie, we're bringing you in. Well, I can. So I don't know. I apologize. I've never had this problem this long into a stream. I sometimes think YouTube hates me.
No, it's working nice now.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you. I know we were going to try and do this last week in build up to the 2-month memory of your family's tragic accident. And when I say your family, I mean that because this is clearly it's definitely more severe for Blayke, who's the victim.
Right.
But you've all been victimized by this. Take us back to that night, April 9th. What the heck was going on? Why, what time of night was it? What had been going on for your brothers? What were they doing out on that highway? That's all these questions that I'm sure everybody's asked and you've had time to think about.
So on April 9th, Blayke, Braxton, and a few of their friends had went to St. Cloud to pick up their prom dresses with their girlfriends. So they were in St. Cloud getting the prom dresses, just eating dinner, just like normal teenage kids. I think around...
I just want the audience to know she's not saying that the boys were picking up their prom dresses.
Right,
we're not quite that far gone in Minnesota.
Right, no. They were with their girls, just doing kid things. And then they were going to bring their friend Thomas home. So, and Thomas lives, I want to say, I think at Big Lake. So that's what brought them that direction. And I had just gotten into bed. So I was just laying in bed and all of a sudden I get a call from Life 360. We have a family Life 360, so we can always know what's going on. I get a call from Life 360 saying that Braxton has been in an accident. I'm an emergency contact and that the authorities have been notified. So I hop out of bed real quick and, I start calling everybody. I first tried calling the kids and, no answer. I did get a hold of Thomas, who is the friend that was with them. And he had said, as of right now, we are okay. He told me, he said, I think Blayke is breathing. And that's when I knew I'm like, oh, it's bad, So I get in my car and I start heading to St. Cloud because I assume that's where the kids will be taken.
I like how you refer to your younger brothers as the kids.
Oh yeah.
I'm
so much older than them, so they are.
Yeah, are you by what? 2 years?
So, well, I'm 28.
Oh yeah, you do have them by a little bit, so then I guess
so
you are entitled to call them the kids. Yes,
the kids. Yeah. Blayke and I are 11 years apart, so yeah, they are.
How many kids are there in your family?
Yeah, well, it's me and then my 3 little brothers, Blayke, Braxton, and Bowden. So I was kind of like a little mama bear to them. So I feel protective.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't mean
But
to sidetrack you. So you hop in
no,
your car, you're headed towards St. Cloud because this
yeah,
seems like the logical
right.
place to end up. Okay.
Yeah. And we had some of Blayke and Braxton both have such a great group of friends. So I'm on the phone with the friends, and some of them are headed to the accident scene. Some of them are headed to the hospital. We're all on our way. But I got to the hospital, and my mom got there shortly after. She's a little bit further away than I am. So, and I think we beat them there by a few minutes, but we got
So
there.
you beat your mom there by a few minutes.
Yep. And we beat Blayke and Braxton there. I think they had just been getting there as we got there. So we didn't really have any information at this point.
Where do you guys live in relation to so the accident took place in Sherburne County?
Yes, in Clear Lake. My parents live in Malacca with the kids. I live in Foley, so I'm like 15 minutes closer to St. Cloud.
So are you on the Sherburne County side of the line?
Nope, I'm in Benton County and my family is in Mille Lacs County. So none of us live in Sherburne County.
Okay. That makes it harder even.
Right.
And even more frustrating. So that, and thank you for being able to communicate this so clearly, because I'd still be a wreck.
Right. I've thought a lot about it. And
yeah,
replayed that day in my head a lot.
That's going to live with you for a very, very long time. So you are all converging from all points of the compass, really.
Right.
And so you arrive at the hospital before. Did they transport Blayke and Braxton via ambulance or life flight? Ambulance. Okay.
At first, they were ambulance. So they got to St. Cloud via ambulance. They actually put Braxton in the same ambulance as the wrong way driver, which I thought was strange. But and then Blayke was lifelined or life flight.
Braxton and the wrong way driver were life flighted from there. The wrong way driver and Braxton had nominal injuries.
Right. Yeah, they were in the same ambulance.
Okay. How much information did you guys get at the ambulance? Did anybody meet you other than the ambulance crews?
Well, when we were waiting for the kids to get to the hospital, they had kind of wheeled Braxton through the hallway into one of the rooms. And so I went in the room and, I'm looking around at everything, and there's a ton of cops everywhere, like sheriffs. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what things are like, so I don't know if this is typical or...
You're like, boy, this seems like an awful lot of cops for an accident. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, well, what in the world's going on, But really no information. I mean, they had told us that it was a wrong way driver, and they said, that they're checking into if he was abusing medication or alcohol. And
whoa, wait a minute. See, this is we probably should have, we talked about having a phone call before, but maybe it's better that we not have, because now I get to be outraged for you. So their approach to you in this was to lead you and your family to believe that the severity of this accident, folks, everybody in my chat and people who are out there who don't know me, this is why I do what I do. This is not a hate issue. People, please understand. I do not hate individual cops. Not one of them. I hate the system. And this is why. What you're hearing directly walks in. There are cops which I don't want. Which one does she go by?
Can you hear me?
Do we lose audio? No, I
Okay,
got
now,
you. So
now I
this.
can.
All right. You guys go. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can. You're spotty.
Now you can. Sometime. Well, so I'll keep talking then, since we're. I don't like. I apologize. I don't know what's going on.
No, you're good.
So
Now I can hear you.
yeah. So your mom's name is Trisha,
Yes.
and it's you and your mom. Who else is there?
So there's me, my mom, there's the 3 boys, our stepdad, Jeremy. He has 2 girls, and then
Okay.
like grandparents and other families, other
Right.
family members.
And that's why. So this is how they approach. Law enforcement approaches you and your family, all of
Well,
you.
I mean, I wouldn't even say that they approached us. You know, of course, I'm like going and asking questions because there's
No,
all
I would have never guessed.
right. I'm out like talking to them, and I'm like, well, what happened? Because at this point, I knew nothing. And they had said wrong way driver, potential medication or alcohol abuse. They were looking into it, but we knew nothing that there was a second accident involving a state trooper. That was found out later in the evening after we kind of pieced things together.
Not that was being investigated for potential misuse of drugs or alcohol. They knew that. They knew full well that there was a trooper involved, and they
Right.
were doing. I am not speaking on behalf of the family, folks. I want everybody to narrative. They're building a narrative to protect what should have been. There was a state trooper involved. Nobody was about the trooper until later, after the hospital. Folks, I apologize. I really don't know what's going on. I do not understand what.
I can hear you now a little bit.
Not. And I cannot explain why we're having these delays. Okay, here we are. I don't know what's causing these delays. It really does. It irks me because So somebody is saying that there's a lot of electrical storms in the air, and that might be what's going on. I don't know. I apologize. Um, if can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay. I really don't have an explanation for why this is happening. So it could be solar flares. I really don't know. How soon after you guys left the hospital did you find out that Trooper Moeser was involved? And just so everybody knows, his name is Ryan Moeser, and he's very familiar to people in this area.
I'm trying to think here. I want to say, I think my mom and Jeremy left the hospital at like 2 a.m. because that's when Blayke was lifeline down to the cities. We had heard about it, not from the Minnesota State Patrol. We had kind of figured it out through a different way. But I think we found out about it at like 1 a.m. And that was no official word. That was just us kind of figuring out, like, well, why is there a trooper vehicle in the ditch? Well, and then Thomas's dad, Thomas was the kid that was also in the accident. He had showed up on scene. So he kind of had some insight as well. But yeah, we really didn't get an official word. I don't even know if it was the following day.
And Thomas was in the vehicle when the trooper caused the severe accident.
Yep. Thomas had hit his head pretty bad from the first initial crash. So I want to say, I think he had like a bloody nose. And so he was in the vehicle. Braxton had got out with Blayke and they checked on the other driver, to my knowledge. And then Braxton came in and I think got Thomas something to wipe his face with because he was bleeding.
And so it's while they're out of the vehicle that Ryan Moeser comes on the scene. And that's, if I remember what you said correctly, Braxton reported that he observed the trooper coming and did say in the moment exactly what.
I want to say he said, Blayke, look, the cops are here already. And then I think he had said, oh, it doesn't look like they're slowing down. And then after that, he said it was pretty spotty. But when Braxton had first got to the hospital, the first thing that he said to me was, all I remember is a cop hitting us and flying into the ditch. Well, I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, we need to get somebody to check out his head because obviously, you know, he's not remembering this correctly. Because like I thought that is what happened.
Well, like, that's impossible.
Right,
Cops,
yeah.
hit somebody involved in an accident.
Right. But, you know, and then so later in the evening, things started to click. I remembered that Braxton had said that, and somebody had told me that there was a trooper vehicle in the ditch. And so all these pieces started kind of coming together, you know, and to not know anything when everybody else around you knows so much and you're the family that's going through that is really, it's an icky feeling.
You know, I covered a story of a family here in southeast Minnesota that had gone through. It wasn't law enforcement related in the sense that the death, the loss of my friend Marcy and her son Spencer. Spencer was killed in a very questionable situation on the road, and everybody knew everything before Marcy did. People in the community knew.
Right.
And law enforcement really worked, and the justice system, you know, the county attorney's office and whatnot all worked to cover up and whatnot. And Marcy is still fighting to get everything out. And that has been, you guys have had this terrible struggle of you are victims, of the accident, but and so I want people to understand that for Blayke, one, you did not believe there was questions about whether or not Blayke was even going to survive.
Yeah, we didn't know for, it was on the table for weeks, for one, we didn't know if he was going to survive. Well, then after we saw the severity of the injuries, it was a big question of, do we try everything we can, or, are his injuries too severe? So that was a question.
Because he was unconscious.
Right.
He was in a coma
Right.
for, what was it? It was almost 3.5 weeks, right?
Yeah. It was almost 3 weeks that, he had a brain injury and this spinal injury. So it's not like he could give us a thumbs up, or, he had tubes in his throat. And, finally, once we started seeing some activity after a few weeks, like he would open his eyes on command. But, the doctors had told us, we don't know how severe his brain injury is. So we didn't know when he would wake up if, he would even be able to cognitively function. So that was a long 3 weeks.
Yeah. So it's touch and go.
Right.
With his survival.
Yeah.
What's his life going to be like if he does survive? And
right.
And we know he's a warrior because not only, he's paralyzed from the neck down. Which vertebrae do you know? That
he has a C4 complete spinal injury. So he has gotten some movement back, so we're hoping that they'll change that to incomplete. They do spinal things strange, but I'm learning all about that.
So anyway, which vertebrae was it?
C4. So
C4,
he's considered right now a C4 complete. Which technically means no movement below injury, but he is having a little bit of movement, so we're hoping that they'll reevaluate his diagnosis and change it to incomplete.
Which is a huge development considering how severe the injury was.
Absolutely.
That's a massive change.
Right.
Yeah. But not only is he, showing some movement, but he's communicating, he's talking, he's made some videos.
Yeah.
He's made some videos. He's graduated from high school. He did not go to prom.
Birthday. No, he didn't go to prom, unfortunately.
He did not go to prom.
Still pretty out of it during prom. Otherwise, we would have put on something here for him, but that was still pretty early.
But they did hold a graduation ceremony, both at the school and then also at the hospital for him.
Yes.
And this is why I said, from victims to heroes, because, or to warriors, however you want to say it. They were victimized on April 9th through a tragic accident that, was not the fault of their own. Either one of these accidents was not the fault of Blayke's driving or their actions. But now there's this continuing victimization that we've already touched on. And as bad as the hospital scene was, with them not telling you on scene at the hospital what had really happened, the fact that this all had to be, kind of filled in by you afterwards.
Right.
When did you receive official notification that a trooper was involved and that there was going to be a notification or an investigation?
I'm trying to really remember it. I don't know, because that night, the Sherburne County investigators had came and talked to my parents and had them sign documentation to release medical records and such. And I think they mentioned that there was a state trooper involved, but I don't think that we knew the severity of it, anything like that. I really don't think it was until like the following day or days that they had really said, well, this is what we think happened. And I don't, yeah.
What was so Braxton makes this comment, and I'm sorry, it is a little funny. You're like, he makes this kind of off the cuff comment that the cop, because I doubt he said trooper in the moment, that the cop hit him and he threw him into the ditch.
Yeah.
And part of you is like, okay, bro,
I said, let's get him a head scan, please, because
yeah, he's not all there.
Right.
And being an older sister, it's easy to assume your younger brother's not all there.
Right.
But once you started to put these things together, did you get that kind of that creeping feeling like there's something going on here that they're not being completely forthright?
Yeah.
Or am I just biased enough that I'm assuming that's how you felt?
The whole time, I'm talking, there was 15, 20 officers in this hallway. There's like a group of them in front of what I assumed was Dale Braun, the wrong way driver's room. So they were like posted out in front of that. And then there was another room that they had officers in front of as well. And, at that point, I had no idea who that was.
That was the truth.
I was just like, I'm going through so much trying to make sure my brothers are okay and that Thomas is okay, that I'm not really thinking about that. But yeah,
that's very understandable though.
Right. But it was a horrible feeling. And then once, I don't remember what time it was. I want to say I think 4 a.m. or something like that. They had walked Ryan Moeser out of the room that he was in. And I think at that point I had known a little bit about the trooper being involved. And it was a disgusting, sickening feeling that, he was right there. And we knew nothing about it, It was really an icky feeling.
You describe that in a way that is very generous, because I don't know if I would have been.
I could say a lot worse things.
Well, trust me, a lot worse things have been said on my channel.
Sure.
My question is, and I'd asked you this once before, just when we were messaging back and forth, is, how many times have you had, subsequent to this accident, how many times has anybody from the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office or the State Patrol, reached out and spoken with you or your family? And your response is that they questioned Braxton one time.
Yeah. And then, my mom has been communicating slightly with one of the investigators from Sherburne County, not the head investigator, kind of the other guy. And then once the case got moved, that communication is now gone. But other than that, we haven't heard anything. We've been waiting and waiting. Because they make it sound like, oh yep, we're gonna get you the initial or the final report, and we're gonna give you some information, and then it's radio silence.
I was having technical difficulties here on this end. So they questioned Braxton, correct?
Yes.
Did they talk to him as if he was a witness, or more of kind of
witness?
As a witness? They did speak to him as a witness. Okay. And since then, there's been no communication other than, oh yeah, we'll get you everything. And now you say the case has been moved.
Yes.
I don't know how much detail. It was a very short gap that I missed. How much?
Yeah.
Let's go into the idea of the case being moved, where it's been moved to, and what the concerns are there with why it was moved, because this is pivotal. I know because we've talked, but I want my audience to hear this from you, from the
Oh,
family.
sure.
Where did the case go? Why do you believe the case went? And strap in, folks, because it gets worse.
So, we've been waiting months for Sherburne County to finish their final investigation so that we can hopefully have some details on the accident. We want to know how fast he was going, just, things like that, so we can better understand the severity of Blake's injuries, for one. So we're waiting months for this investigation to be completed, and, finally they complete it and they send it to the is it the prosecutor?
The Sherburne County Attorney's
Yeah,
Office.
the county attorney, whoever they're sending it to. I think the investigator had mentioned to us, he said that the county attorney is going to review it and make a decision on whether or not they want to keep the case or if it's going to be a conflict of interest, because apparently Ryan Moeser had worked for Sherburne County. She had the case, he, whoever they are, had the case for 2 weeks reviewing it, and then made the decision, oh, yep, it is a conflict of interest. We're going to give it to a different county. So in our head,
hold on to that for just a second, folks. I want everybody to understand it's basically 2 months. Now, have we been able to pinpoint where Ryan Moeser worked in Sherburne County? Did he work for the sheriff's office? Did he work for another department of the county?
I have no idea.
But they indicated to you that there was some sort of work relationship there,
Right.
that they were concerned about.
Right.
They knew that from day
start.
one.
Yeah.
There's no way that they did not know this at all, that there was a working relationship of some sort there.
Yeah, sounds like a waste of time to me. Oh, you froze again.
Okay, here we go.
One
You're
second.
back. We're here. I don't. So there's no way they did not know that this conflict of interest existed. And yet they carry on for basically 2 months investigating. And oh my gosh. Here we are. So they go for 2 months doing this investigation. Turn it over. It still takes 2 more weeks, and then they turn it over to another county. And at no point until they turn it over do they really, or until they actually turn it over to the county attorney to consider prosecution of charges, does anybody mention in any point that Moeser had this connection to the county? At no point did they ever tell you that until they turned it over to the county attorney. And then the county attorney sits on it for 2 weeks and then says, nope, sorry, we're going to have to hand this off to, which county did they end up going to?
Dakota County.
Which is how far away?
I don't think super far. I think it goes Hennepin and then Dakota.
Yeah. So yeah, Dakota is on the kind of the southeast end of the Twin Cities.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a decent amount of drive time for you guys if they do end up deciding to prosecute. The wrong way driver has yet to have been even issued a citation, by the way, folks, just so everybody knows. I've looked into this. I have somebody that's done some checking. We cannot find any citations that were issued to the wrong way driver on this.
Right. And in my head, I forget about the wrong way driver because we're so caught up that Blake's injuries came from the state trooper. But it's also like, what's going on with that? He was, I don't know.
So I want to go back to the hospital thing where you're like 15 officers, 15 cops are all outside of the wrong way driver. And, and this is, knowing that he was an older gentleman, I can actually be pretty, it's terrible that the accident happened.
Right.
But you're talking about an older gentleman, maybe easily confused, maybe shouldn't be on the road. That's clearly something that has got to be taken into consideration now. It's unfortunate that this had to happen, but this wasn't a malicious event on his part.
Agreed.
There was if there was any indication that there was alcohol or drug abuse at hand, there would have been charges already. But they have his room surrounded with these 15 people, and then there's cops surrounding Trooper Ryan Moeser's room. Then they escort him out. And by escort, it wasn't like he was escorted out in an investigatory fashion. He was escorted out as, here's this brother who's broken and needs our help.
Yes. And that's what's so disgusting.
I want people to understand that they really wanted to pin this all and blame this all on the wrong way driver. That was the gist from the get-go. And people could say, well, TC, you're speculating. You can't possibly know that. The fact that that's how it was presented to them in the hospital tells you everything you need to know, that this is all about narrative building from the get-go. The fact that they sat on this investigation for 2 months before moving the charging decision out of the purview of Sherburne County to Dakota County also tells you that they're working to cover this up. I want to point out something that you said, Baylie, to the audience, and I'm sure they caught this. Well, hopefully they caught it, but I am really embarrassed about all the technical difficulties. IR professional, you said something that indicated as you came into this accident, came into your brother's injuries, that really speaks to probably your normative, small, agricultural, agrarian Minnesota upbringing. The cops couldn't possibly be wrong here. There's no way a cop could be responsible for this.
That's what I thought.
I'm imagining, knowing the area you were raised in, I don't know if your guys' politics. That doesn't matter to me. Right. But I do know how rural Minnesota, and you guys are rural Minnesota. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, none of you live in a big city.
Right.
I would imagine you were all kind of this, hey, there goes our local, heroes. There goes our local, good guys. Has this been a shock to you and your family in response to how you now are starting to look at law enforcement? And if you're like, no, we still completely understand that, they're all mostly good apples. I'm not going to go, well, you're stupid, show's over. That's not what I'm asking. Yeah. But has it begun to change your guys' perspective about the system and how the system works?
Right. I mean, I know I can speak for myself here for sure. My family has always been a back the blue family. My youngest brother, Bowden, who's 13, dresses up in his cop uniform like he wants to be a police officer so badly. Well, then something of this severity happens to us, and we get it. Mistakes happen and such like that, but I mean, it's just the way that it's being handled by the Minnesota State Patrol, and just the way it's being handled in general, it's baffling, really. So I know I can say that, yeah, my mind has completely taken a different direction.
You're safe here. I promise you're safe here. Even people who do watch my content that are friends, we have a debate,
Right.
about, they're like, hey, we still got to back the blue. And I'm like, Now I did share a phrase with your family.
I know, it's my favorite.
Have you used it?
I have.
So they don't have to hear it from me. What phrase did we exchange?
Back the blue until it happens to you. And that's the damn truth.
I did not mean to ruin life for you.
No, that phrase is sat loud and clear in my head, and I mean, it's true. It really, if this would have been handled in a different manner than it has been, and accountability has been taken, and they're doing the steps to make things right instead of hide things and shove it under the rug, this would be a completely different conversation. But they're not. It's shameful and it's disgusting, and for the state of Minnesota, I really am disgusted. I lost you, Todd.
Keep talking. I heard you. I'm sorry. Now you guys were supposed to be having a meeting with the State Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
And you said not without our attorneys.
Yeah, we said you can set it up through our attorney.
And how did that end? How'd that mean?
Radio silence. Not a word after that. Not one thing.
Do you feel, have you ever gotten, and obviously your family members can speak for themselves, and you have, honestly, you've kind of stepped into that public relations role for your family. I don't know if that's always been the way you are, but you have stepped into that role.
Sure.
So I'm not asking you to speak for the entirety of your family.
Right.
But do you almost feel like they see you guys as the enemy now, as the threat, because you have been vocal? I mean,
right.
You had a family member that reached out to me and said, hey, I saw some of your content about some of these other stories.
Mm-hmm.
And Sherburne's been on my radar for a couple of years now,
right?
Just over an incident involving a member of the Sherburne County Sheriff's Office and how he handled a grandmother at a county board meeting. And so some of this doesn't surprise me, but do you feel like between the State Patrol and the Sherburne County and whatnot, the fact that you guys have been vocal and saying, hey, what's going on? Why is no one talking to us? Do you feel like they're kind of like backing off and treating you like you're the enemy, like you're the problem? And that's what this is from? Or
well, it's hard to know exactly how to feel, because I've never been through anything like this. I don't know how the process works. And, I'm sure it's not a super quick process, but I think communication, if they were even to just tell us hey, we're going to try to get you information as soon as we can. We get it. Just something like that, instead of completely pushing us under the rug. Blake's life was basically stolen from this officer. Yes, he's alive. Yes, he's living. But I mean, his life is changed completely. And, to be just like not acknowledged is disgusting. It's frustrating. You know, Blayke wants answers. Blayke deserves that. While this trooper is on paid leave, my mom and I have both missed like incredible amounts of work while we're here trying to take care of Blayke and make sure that he's okay and make sure Braxton is good, because the trauma he has went through is insane.
And
All while
Thomas,
Ryan Moeser is on a paid vacation.
the emotions, the roller coaster that you just went on just now, just in that, it's you have to laugh or you'll cry, but
Right.
I want people to think about where you just were in the sorrow for Blayke.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking, I'm like, there's like, Blayke, not only is he physically injured, but there's a psychological and emotional mental health issue here. Like, this is going to be a PTSD thing that he's going to have to deal with for the rest of his life. But so is Braxton. So is Thomas, right? It's the other
Thomas, yes.
Yeah. So is Thomas. Like, we're not talking about, oh, Braxton's fine and Thomas is fine. Like, this is going to be years in the trauma that this is inflicted on your family. And it actually, I think it exacerbates the difficulty when everybody is circling the wagons. And I am going to challenge one thing that you did say, which is, well, I understand that no investigation into a car accident would ever take this long under any other circumstance.
Yeah.
At all.
If it would have been me that had hit a trooper, I would have been locked up, I'm sure.
No, I mean, it's fair. How many times have you said that to yourself in the 2+ months now?
Said that if it would have been me that had done that, I would have. Oh, a lot. If it would have been anybody that did that and the roles were reversed, it would be handled completely differently. And that's it irritates me.
You said it's icky earlier, but doesn't it feel, it feels more than that though. It feels slimy.
Yeah.
Like feels dirty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dirty is a good word for it.
How is this impacting the way you're responding, when you're driving down the road now and you see a trooper or you see a sheriff's deputy or a local municipal cop or something? Right. Are you finding yourself hesitant, not so much paranoid, like, oh man, now I think they're watching me? That's my response, because I tend to say I tend to be a lot more judgmental. But God bless you, Baylie, and I mean that, because you said something in, I think it was maybe with WCCO.
Yeah.
You said, look, we understand that the trooper's been impacted by this as well.
Yeah.
God bless you for your graciousness and your kindness, but I don't care about how he's been impacted, because he's got all the support in the world. And like you pointed out, this entire time, he's sitting out on paid administrative leave.
Yeah.
Like literally getting paid.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no restrictions on him. It's not like he can't go fishing or what, I don't know, whatever he does.
He hasn't spent 67 days in the hospital.
Right. And he's out there getting paid during all of this.
Yeah.
And there's no way they can take that away from him. And so I doubt that there's a paranoia that some of us may have, and rightly so, because we do speak out like I do. But do you find yourself hesitating and reticent as you approach an officer, see an officer, going, are you the next one? Has that ever crossed your mind? Are you still kind of in that?
I view them differently. I mean, whenever I see a state trooper, you know.
It's okay. I flip them off once in a while. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, people that like Blayke and Braxton thought were coming to help them caused the most damage, and now we're being shoved under the rug. And so, yeah, I'm not particularly thrilled with seeing a state trooper.
Yeah. You know, I think this is, and I know your family's aware of the story. To me, what happened in this situation with Ryan Moeser, Trooper Ryan Moeser, is really reminiscent of Trooper Shane Roper
Yeah.
down here in southeast Minnesota when he, and I'm sorry, people, if you don't like it, he murdered Olivia Flores. His actions led directly to her death. And, you know, we know for a fact now that Trooper Roper had an extensive history of discipline as it related to his dangerous and negligent driving. We all have found that Trooper Moeser has charges from before he was in law enforcement for excessive speed. And people will say things like, well, that was, you know, that was before. And when I look at people who are going into the law enforcement world, to the law enforcement career field, I expect that they have an incredibly high level of professionalism, not only while they're on the job, but off the job, but even prior to taking the job. And one of those charges that Ryan Moeser had was minor consumption of alcohol under the age of 21. Now, this is a public record. So this means he was over 18 and under the age of 21, which, depending on how, you know, how he got into the criminal justice system, was he in college for criminal justice at the time? How did he survive the criminal justice program with a minor consumption of alcohol charge is what really floors me. How did we look past that and say, and Pete, yes, and this is where I give you credit, people make mistakes. Do you want to ruin their life over a mistake? The issue is, this isn't like he's trying to apply for a job as a general manager of a Quick Trip.
Right.
He's going into a career field where he's going to be expected to enforce the state codes, traffic codes, by state statutes on others, while he himself wasn't able to maintain that level without being a law enforcement officer. Now he has the power and the authority to kind of drive however he wants to drive.
Right.
And this appears to be a problem for the state patrol when you look at Trooper Shane Roper, Ryan Moeser, and people reporting to me now. I'm getting stories every day. I mean, I have multiple videos of state patrol officers, even after Roper down here, still violating Minnesota state statute. Of course now, I guarantee you if I type it on my phone, it'll come up. I think 167.19. Yeah. 169.17, Minnesota State Statute 169.17. And I've shared that one with you guys, that says that even if they're going to be driving and violating code, if they have to exceed the speed limit, if they have to drive in such a way that they're responding to an emergency, they have to have lights on. But that doesn't excuse them from driving with due care and diligence to protect everyone around them. So if everybody says, well, he was responding to this wrong way driver and he had his lights on, because I believe somebody said that they thought they saw his lights when he was coming.
Yeah, I believe he had his lights on.
That doesn't change the fact that he was clearly driving in excessive speed.
All right. What are you going to do? Hit the wrong way driver head on?
I know that I did not plant that thought in your head. I know that you guys had.
I've thought lots about this. Highway 10 is an absolutely straight shot. There's no hills, there's no turns in that area. So to me,
So I want to understand this because I am not familiar. I've never been there.
sure,
You're telling me this is a divided highway, right?
the divided highway, correct?
Okay. The trooper approached the accident from behind Blayke and Braxton.
Yes, to my knowledge. I mean, yeah.
We don't know because they're not
I don't know
talking.
if they haven't heard anything.
Yeah. So to the best that we've been able to ascertain, the
Right.
Trooper Moeser approaches from behind
Yes.
on a straight line of
Straight
road.
as
There's no curves,
no curves, no hills, nothing.
not even little dips that they
No.
could have been hidden in.
Nope. So how is it unavoidable? You obviously didn't see it because you were obviously distracted or doing something.
Or you were just driving too goddamn fast,
Right.
which violates one.
Even then, if you look up, if you're driving 80 miles per hour, if you look up, you should be able to see lights in an accident, you know, in my head, quite a ways away.
Well, you were looking for somebody that was should
Right.
like coming at you.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
literally the reason he was on that road was because
Yep.
911 calls caused him to be dispatched to go
Right.
stop this guy.
You know, and I have a hard time in my head believing that he didn't know that there was an accident because it had been called in by Braxton. It had been called in by Life 360. I just, you know, I guess I don't quite know how all that works, but I feel like on his radio, he should have been aware that there had been an accident. You know, so therefore you should be even proceeding with more caution than you already should be pursuing a wrong way driver.
Folks, I'm
Just-
not the only one who thinks like this now. We've ruined Baylie. We
That's
ruined
all.
her. She's ruined.
Yeah,
And I'm
maybe
not
it's
making fun of
frustrating.
I'm not making fun of you. I just I once again I chuckle just because I can feel the process that you're walking through
Yeah.
with this. I can feel the reality of what's happening here for you. And
Mhm.
just how terribly frustrating this has to be for you guys to be in this situation and being told nothing.
Right.
Nothing. To not know about the conflict of interest, to not know which direction the trooper. I mean, I cannot picture. There's no way that I can imagine that the trooper wasn't heading the same direction that Blayke and Braxton had.
Yeah, he was. That I
and
mean, he for
Thomas
sure
had
was.
to have been going for this accident.
Yeah.
That there's
That I
no
do
way
know.
that he came on this like. It had to have been an excessive amount of speed.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he didn't know about the accident, to be getting in a position to trying to attempt a stop on a wrong way
Right.
driver coming at you.
Right.
What you like? You're a
Yeah.
missile.
Right. I mean,
You're
just
a ballistic missile, and
right. No care for public safety in the world, it sounds like, you know. And yeah, like I said, he just stole a 17-year-old's life from him, who's now more than likely going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Which, you know, for a 17, now 18-year-old, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for us. It's
he had some athletic he had some. Let's talk about Blayke.
Mhm.
Blayke didn't have a long history of run-ins with law enforcement, by the way.
No.
It wasn't like Blayke was out partying up every weekend. No. And well, I don't know, maybe he was. But everything that I've heard, it's easy to let's be honest. It's easy to be really super positive about somebody like Blayke after the fact without, like to go, oh no, he was, he's a perfect kid. I'm sure Blayke had his moments, right?
But, oh, absolutely. As any 17-year-old kid does.
There you go. And I know that apparently Blayke might be watching right now. If he hasn't got bored with all the freezes.
Yeah. Well, he might have switched it to Outer Banks.
Oh, I know what we could do. We could tell him that none of the freezes happened and that it's just all his fault for not,
Yeah,
you know.
he missed it.
Yeah, you missed it, Blake. I don't know what's going on. But Blake, if you are watching, I'm not going to say mean things about you. I'm just going to be honest. He's a 17-year-old. I'm sure he's had some cheeky moments, but I also heard that he was kind of an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, Blake had been in wrestling, football, and I think he was in baseball. But I mean, more recently, he has gotten really into anything with a motor, anything with wheels. Could pop a wheelie on absolutely anything. He's
In a
he's
safe
good.
and controlled environment, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would
Yeah,
never do anything
good at
risky.
everything he does, and I know he's gonna kick butt and do great, but it's just shouldn't be this way. And it sucks that due to somebody else's poor choices and actions, that Blake is the one that's paying the price as well as Braxton.
And honestly, you and your mom and the rest of the family, they are. I know that you have an aunt down in Florida that is incredibly invested in this, and
Yes.
she's a bit of a warrior. She's she has been in your corner,
Absolutely.
quietly prodding me from time to time.
Oh,
I love you guys. You've all been super super encouraging to me. It's very it's very difficult to reach out to people in these moments because
right.
you don't want to insinuate yourself into a situation that you have no business being part of.
Sure. I get it.
And I think the first time that I reached out, I was like, I just, it was tough.
Right. Well, I appreciate you reaching out. It's been great to have you in my corner too. We appreciate that a lot.
And I've told your mom this and I've told you this, but I'm gonna, my audience knows this, that I'm not going away. I want to come meet Blake. I really do. I want to come meet Blake and then make fun of him, pick on him, and then tell him, that he can't catch me.
You better be prepared because he is pretty spicy.
I've
I'll
noticed.
right back.
I would love that. I enjoy that.
He's funny.
But I would love to come meet Blake and take some pictures with him and introduce him to my crew, my audience, but I'm not going away. I do not see any way around them short of absolutely 100% covering this up. I do not see any way around Trooper Moeser being charged.
I hope so. I mean, I guess I don't know how all that works, but I hope so.
I'm very, I'm very, very concerned that they're ultimately going to try to make this all about the older gentleman.
Yeah, me too.
That they're going to try and find a way to pin this all on him and say, well, we're not going to charge him, but if he hadn't been going the wrong way down the highway, none of this would have happened.
Right. That's just shady.
And people can say what they want, and I'm sure you guys have felt this and thought about this, but that might be true, but this idea of protect and serve, like you said, where was the care for the safety of the public in this moment? But more than that is the ticking time bomb that is somebody like a Trooper Moeser, if this was his response to a wrong way driver. What does this say about how he drives in other moments and just how fortunate it's been that it hasn't been somebody else?
Yeah, I know that's not somebody I want coming to, help me and, Yeah, he's lucky more things haven't happened because I feel like he obviously is pretty negligent.
If you could speak directly to, I want to start with this. If you could speak directly to a few key people, one, what would you say to Sheriff Joel Brott right now under the circumstances? And yes, we know that he has investigators and stuff that handle all of this, but the sheriff's office is his responsibility. What would you say to him about how he's handled this?
I would say that I feel like this whole situation has been handled very poorly. And Blayke, a now 18-year-old boy whose life was stolen from him, deserves more than what you guys have provided. You know, it's wrong. It's very shameful. It's,
What would you say to Colonel Christina Begovich, I think is how she says her name. She's the
I know who that
commander
is.
of the Minnesota. She commands the Minnesota State Patrol. She's the one ultimately in charge of the Minnesota State Patrol directly. She has all authority over it.
Well, I would say that she sucks too because she hasn't handled this very well.
Like, you suck too. I'm like, no, I love it. It's straight and to the point.
Ugh. It's just disgusting. I mean, I don't know. I still can't even fathom that this is how things are being handled and that we are just being like completely shoved under the rug while Blayke lays in a hospital bed and they're not a word from them. Really.
In as much as you can, because you've shown some graciousness already, I want you to talk directly to Ryan Moeser right now.
Well, I feel like if Ryan Moeser is any sort of a person, he hopefully feels terrible. That doesn't, excuse that he stole the life of a 17-year-old boy from him. The injuries that Blayke suffered, I wish people truly knew the extent of Blayke's injuries and that pretty much every inch of his body was battered and broken. And, I just, we just deserve some accountability.
I think about, is it Broughton is your youngest brother?
Bowden,
I'm sorry.
Bowden. It's a strange name. But.
No, it's not. It's just because he's been so much younger.
Right.
He hasn't been, out there publicly.
Yeah, he's a quiet little kid.
Has this impacted him and his wanting to be in law enforcement? Has he changed at all? Has he been no?
Nope, he stands by what he loves, and yes, he understands that the situation, but we're not gonna push anything on him or tell him right, because he's going through trauma too, and if that's what makes him feel safe and comfortable, then absolutely. He put on his little cop garb suit, and the kids' friends were all outside, and Bowden wanted to go outside and talk to him, and I had to quick run out there and say, no, nobody can. Nobody. Don't say anything to Brad or Bowden.
Yeah, but and that says so much. It says so much about your heart and your desire for. It says a lot about your family too, and it's why I've come to respect you guys so much. Is just how much you. I mean, it's easy for people to assume that everybody. Don't.
I lost you, Todd.
It's easy to assume that family will stand with family, right?
Right.
But you guys, this is not a normative situation. There's no normalcy to this. The amount of clinging together that you guys have done it's just been staggering and astounding,
Thank
and
you.
it's inspirational. And um, I hope that if there's ever anything that you need, that you're able to um, feel comfortable reaching out and saying, hey, we need a safe place to talk, because we're I and my audience will be here for that. And
I appreciate that.
there's absolutely no way in the world that I'm going to abandon this. And if they do decide to go ahead with charges, um, I might even put in time and effort to go to the trial, because I feel like it needs to be covered.
Yeah. I do too. I can't wait until I have that information and see where it goes.
Where can everybody find information for Blayke? And like I said, we'll have the link in the description of the video.
I have a caring bridge started for Blayke that I have been trying to post on as much as I can. I keep everybody updated on what's going on with him, and I share photos there. And I can get you the link for that as well. I'm sure you have it.
And you have do you have a GiveSendGo or a GoFundMe?
Yeah, we do have a GoFundMe that is also connected to the caring bridge.
Okay.
So you can find all of that right there.
And what's the plan for Blayke today? Are we breaking him out of the hospital and taking him for pizza, or?
We might break out of the hospital a little bit if it doesn't rain today. We have finally got to the point where Mom and I can take him in the wheelchair and wheel him wherever we want to go within reason.
Let's make a break for it. Let's take him to
That's what Blayke says. He's like, let's get out of
Pizza Ranch or something. I mean, is he able to enjoy foods that he likes now?
Absolutely. He can eat whatever he wants, drinks whatever he wants. We're hopefully pushing to get that trach out because he's not using it. So we'd like to get that out. Oh, look here's my new Blayke Strong shirt.
Yeah, I was just you're going to be working on getting another round of Blayke Strong shirts?
Yes. And I'll be sure to get you one.
Oh, well, thank you. Is there anything that anybody can do for you guys besides, just prayers? I know that there's people posting prayers to your mom's.
Right. Yeah. I mean, really, we just need all the love and support that we can get. Pray that, Blayke conquers this as well as he can. And, that's what we're looking for.
Well, that's, thanks for making the time. And I am really sorry about the technical issues. I do not understand what caused it. I don't last week. I guarantee you, if we would have been able to connect, none of this would have happened. But then you had life get in the way, and now, it's this. So I've got somebody asking in what happened to Blayke.
I see that. Tyler, you're late. And then Todd will cut out.
So there we are. So Tyler, what was paralyzed in an accident 2 months ago involving a Minnesota State Patrol trooper, and the family's been playing hell trying to get any kind of information about the investigation and what actually happened. And I have a whole series of videos about this case, and you can go back and watch those, and you can listen to Bailey's comments. And I'm going to close this out, and then I'm going to come back and I'll talk to you for just a couple of minutes, and then everything will be perfect. Sounds right good. Because then there will be no hesitations or delays, because you'll be in the we'll be. So folks, I can't apologize, because I don't know why it's doing what it's doing today. I'm just going to chalk it up to the powers that be not liking the content. Please linked in the description of the video. Like I said earlier, I would love support here on the channel. I would love, more people to, pick up channel memberships, super chats, super thank yous. But what's more important to me is support for Blayke and his family, for Baylie and the people that she loves. Folks, none of these things change. None of this stuff stops happening until we start demanding transparency and accountability for law enforcement. And from the beginning of Baylie telling the story of what happened to even now, you've heard that it's been one thing after another, after another, after another, of law enforcement covering up, delaying, dragging their feet on the investigation, the county attorney dragging their feet. How do you have a trooper involved in such a serious accident? No one tells the family until there's never really an official notification that the trooper is involved until the investigation is announced. No one talks about the conflict of interest until after they've conducted their investigation. The county attorney takes 2 weeks to even consider the conflict of interest and then passes it off to another county who has still not talked to the family. Folks, when I tell you that law enforcement protects itself, I'm not saying that out of hate. I'm saying that out of experience. I'm saying that out of all these stories that I've continued to tell over and over and over and over again. They're not there to watch out for you. They circle the wagons to protect themselves and protect each other. And then when it's impossible to avoid a conclusion, then they'll get rid of the problem, throw them under the bus, so to speak. Every single one of the good cops, from the deputies in Sherburne County to state patrol officers, should all be chomping at the bit to blow the whistle on this situation, to protect the integrity of their agencies. But you will not see it happen because the ones that are willing to speak out do not stay in the career field very long. They get rid of them, and they do it on purpose. Trooper Ryan Moeser, my words for you are the same that they always been. I hope you're not getting any sleep. I hope that you are plagued by nightmares every single goddamn night till you get to the point where you decide you cannot stay in this career field anymore. No matter what it costs you, no matter what you lose. Even if you escape charges, you need to get out of this career field before you kill somebody. For those of you that are dads out there, I hope that you have a decent Father's Day. For those of you that didn't have the best relationship with your fathers or didn't have the best fathers at all, I hope that you are able to be the dads that you didn't have, and that you're able to pass on to your children a better life than what you were handed. So until next time, my friends, as my friend Monica made for me for my tagline, fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
target. You are authorized to fire at